Hey, PreSales Collective, it's your host, Maddie Stremick. And today I'm going to be joined by Gizelle Panton, who is a solutions engineer at Slack, and Allison Macalik, who is the lead solutions engineer and team lead at Salesforce. The topic for today's episode is why mentorship matters. Gizelle participated in our PreSales Foundations program as an emerging sales engineer and was paired with Allison in August of this year. And since then, they've stayed connected and have really developed a strong mentorship relationship. So we'll be diving into a little bit about their relationship as well as tips on how to successfully mentor. Hope you enjoy.
Hi there, my name is Yuji Higashi, co-founder of PreSales Collective, and I have big news to share with you if you're a pre-sales leader or an individual contributor early in your career. We recently launched 2 training and enablement programs aimed at helping you take your career to the next level. Both programs were created by pre-sales leaders with input from dozens of SC veterans across our community. Now, we'll be running cohorts each month, so if you're interested in participating, visit us at presalescollective.com/enablement to submit an inquiry, and we'll send you details about each program, including this curriculum and schedule. We look forward to working with you on growing your career and being part of your career journey. Thank you, and I hope to see you soon.
Allison and Gizelle, welcome to the PreSales podcast. How are you both doing today?
Great, thank you.
Yeah, doing great. I was telling y'all I'm very caffeinated and ready to go.
Well, I'm so glad. I know this is a little extra early for you, Allison, but I am so excited to be chatting with both of you guys and really get into why mentorship matters, especially in the context of the pre-sales profession, and give our listeners a little insight into y'all's relationship as a mentor and mentee pairing. So for the sake of our audience, would love to just give them some insight. How do you guys know each other? And ultimately, how'd you guys end up starting a mentor relationship? Allison, if you maybe want to take a first take on that.
So I got involved with the PreSales Collective almost 2-3 years ago. James and I used to work together at Salesforce before the PreSales Collective was even started, but I knew that's what he was doing. And my friend Hannah, we worked together, Hannah Bloking, she and I have a workshop called the Imposter Syndrome Workshop. And so we brought that to PreSales Collective twice, actually 3 times now, because it's so fun and it's so helpful. I hope that's what our feedback is. And so after that, I was like, you know what? I want to get more involved. What's like the next step? And he's the one actually who told me about the mentorship program. And then I was like, oh, that's great. Put it on my back burner. Well, then Hannah did it. And Maddie, I think I slacked you. And I said, is it too late? I'd love to get involved. And I did the academy the first time. And then I said, I'd love to work with pre-sales people who are starting off in their career or already in that role. And then Maddie, actually, you're the one who said, okay, the cohort would be perfect. And so Gizelle is my first official cohort mentee. So that's kind of how it happened.
I remember listening into sort of like a dry run or prep run for that imposter syndrome, and you and Hannah just talking about your why behind the workshop. And I knew then that was going to be a hit. We've run it multiple times because of popular demand. So great to have, gotten you involved with PreSales Collective and the PreSales Academy, and now with our PreSales Foundations program, which is where Gizelle came in. So Gizelle, if you want to give a little bit of insight into, meeting Allison and what that process was like.
So, I had the amazing opportunity to, get a mentor through this program, so which I was super excited about. So I kind of reached out to Maddie and was like, hey, when can I get the mentor going? I was kind of like a little bit impatient, but very excited to, speak with someone with, a lot of experience that could really help me. I'm within my first couple months of being an SE. So it was really important for me to have someone to speak to. Maddie suggested that, oh, well, Allison works at Salesforce, so maybe that will be a good fit for you since you work at LinkedIn. You're both at large companies. And I said, yeah, absolutely. So I think she'll understand, the dynamic of being in an enterprise, company and different ways to navigate teams and the politics and everything like that. So I said, yeah, sign me up. So we jumped on a call and we hit it off right away, really. And we were kind of just laughing, I think, for the first 5 minutes. But it was just very casual, very natural, and it was just very comfortable right off the bat. So yeah, just super grateful for the opportunity to even meet Allison, and we're off to the races at this point.
Gizelle, I think you messaged me I sent you a DM on Slack and I was like, how did it go with Allison? I'm pretty sure you told me that you were like, yeah, we like met for like 2 hours or something. And I was just like, wow, man, like this is a really good pairing. So I was so happy to hear that. And, Gizelle, as someone that is new to pre-sales and currently onboarding at LinkedIn, would love for you to share a little bit about that journey as far as how you even found pre-sales and what it's been like as a new SE in an organization like LinkedIn.
I actually found pre-sales through LinkedIn. So I was originally like an operations analyst for one of our teams here. And I had met one of the pre-sales like managers. So one of the solution engineering managers at LinkedIn named Megan. And I had talked to her about the role and kind of like wanted to get more information. And I was like, ooh, this sounds like an interesting role. It's technical. It's kind of salesy, but not quota carrying. So I'm like, okay, I'm interested. I want to know more about it. So actually, it was speaking to Megan that brought me to the PreSales Collective and brought me to finding out about the Foundations program in the Academy. So I spoke to her. It sounded great. I said, okay, I'm going to sign up for this training. And then I interviewed for a position and I didn't get it the first time, which was totally fine. And I had no experience whatsoever. And then another role popped up and, Megan reached out and asked if I was still interested in perhaps joining the team. And I said, absolutely. I'm already signed up for this program. And then I was just ready. I was just sold on it. And it's really like the variety of the job, like how every day it's going to be a little bit different. And I've already, noticed that in my first few months that there's a lot of research, a lot of learning new things. And I really wanted to be challenged because I think I've been in this kind of data centric role for so long that it was just getting a little bit boring. And, I was really trying to find ways to make it fun and make it challenging. And I think I really pushed myself, into this new role. It just seems like a really good fit. So okay, so far, I'm definitely in that uncomfortable stage of of learning, but I know it's going to be worth it in the end. And I have, so many great people in my corner, so including Allison and yourself, Maddie. So thank you so much.
I think I got to see your first demo ever. Is that right? Yep.
Yeah.
So Gizelle went through our pre-sales foundations program. And so she gave a demo in front of, I think, quite a few folks, including myself. First demo ever, came in with a lot of confidence. And then I got to watch the last demo that she did as part of the program. And oh my gosh, she absolutely crushed it. I just was smiling ear to ear watching this recording because of just how much intentionality and preparation. And then even just your delivery. It's hard to deliver a recorded demo well because no one's on the other end, but you did it excellently. So of course, it makes sense that you're doing well in your onboarding on LinkedIn. And appreciate your transparency in sharing that you didn't get the role the first time. I think for a lot of people that want to pivot into this career, rejections can feel discouraging, but I think it's that perseverance that ultimately allows you to make it through and hopefully end up in the best career in tech. Allison, you've been in pre-sales for a little bit longer. Would love to know, what's your journey? How did you end up in pre-sales?
So when I first met Gizelle, I'm a pretty good judge of character. So in the first 4 minutes, I was like, great, we're going to be friends forever. And so I think our official time together ended months ago, and we still check in all the time and still chat and all the things. But when you said that there will be rejection and there will be obstacles, you have to keep kind of going. Talking with Gizelle, it reminded me so much. So I've been in pre-sales since 2015. And when I started, I had no idea what pre-sales was. No one really knew what pre-sales was. I was coming from a marketing background. And I remember at kickoff, this older salesman was like, "You getting ready to demo all the time?" And I'm like, "I don't do that." And he goes, "No, that's literally what you do." And I was like, "Okay." And I had no idea. So I get in the role. I have no clue. Imposter syndrome instantly. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know what this means. What is happening? And I failed my first certification ever. I just failed it. Boom, done. And I think for a lot of people in this role, we are in it because we're very type A, we're very driven. We love helping the customers, but we don't necessarily love, quota carrying and all the pressure of sales. So it's almost like this perfect fit of pre-sales. But I wanted to quit that night. I did. I was like, I'm done. I've never failed at anything. I hate it. What am I doing? And I told Gizelle that I watched Pitch Perfect that night in the theaters. That's how long it's been. And I was like, if they can do it, I can do it. And so I came back the Monday. And I was like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to demo. And I remember Googling how to demo, and there wasn't really anything that existed. So I started going on people's calls and recording them and then just watching it and writing it. And oh my gosh, it was insane. But, and Gizelle, I don't want to map you out, but
No, it's all good.
Your first certification, right, didn't go amazing. And you are a top performer in type A. And it's like, oh my gosh, what is this? So I just think that with this program, it's like you can let someone know, I have been there and I am so much like you. And I promise you, once you get this first certification done, it's going to be a totally different conversation we're having. All that to say, right, that's about just kind of being grounded and humbled for the first time in your career. And it's really hard and challenging, and it's a brand new skill set. So that's how I got started 2015 at a company called Sprinkler. I was there for a couple years. And then I went into a stint in customer success because I wanted to make sure all the things I was saying, just, the other side, did not like it. It's like, I love presenting. I love building relationships in a different way. And then came to Salesforce on Halloween Day in 2019. And I've been here ever since. So that's a roundabout way of my story, and also perseverance.
Perseverance is so important. And thank you for sharing that story, because I think we all have a version of that story. I know I did in giving my first demo and listening to it after and cringing the entire time and thinking I wasn't good enough and I couldn't do this. This is a job that definitely pushes you, and it requires you to be on stage, which is a lot of pressure, and you have to be the expert a lot of times, or that's how it feels. And that's what they're expecting of you. So I love, just the dynamic between you guys. To be honest, when we do pairings, it really was based off of kind of company and Gizelle wanting, interested in learning from someone in a larger company. But beyond that, we didn't do a questionnaire to actually pair folks. So I'd love to know what's made this relationship or this mentorship successful. The fact that you guys are still engaging, still connected, still cheering each other on months down the road.
Honestly, I just feel like from the jump, we just got along very well. I think we connected just on a personal, human level, so that I feel like for me, it didn't feel like, I was being judged in any way. It felt very comfortable. I was comfortable being vulnerable with Allison. So I think it's about making that personal connection with the person and making them really almost care about who you are, where you want to go. Cause if they're going to invest their time in you, I think that they need to like you a little bit, right? They need to care about you on a certain level. So I just thought, okay, I'm just going to be myself. And if we click, then great, then we can move forward, and she can really help me figure this all out. This world that I, am very new to. I think that was the biggest thing for me is I enjoy our conversations, and every time we have an interaction, it's very helpful, and it's very she's very kind. So it's just very easy, I would say. It doesn't feel like it's this extra thing for me anyway. Hopefully not for you, Allison.
I'll just Slack you sometimes and be like, hey, do you want to chat? I think too, as I've gotten older in my career, I used to be very I'm going to be buttoned up and this is who I am, presenting myself and blah, blah, blah. As I've gotten older and had 2 kids, I'm like, that's stupid. I have no time for that. I'm just going to be real, the realest person I can be, and be super vulnerable in hopes that people will then give that back to me. Gizelle, to your point, sometimes people don't, sometimes people stay really buttoned up and you can't really break through to that next relationship. In any relationship, it doesn't have to be a mentor relationship, but I'm telling you, in the first 5 minutes, I feel like Gizelle kind of matched my energy and was like, all right, we're going to do this. This is a vulnerable time, and I was like, me too, let's go. And I just think that if you want to have a really great experience from the start, I'd say that vulnerability is key, especially because no one really knows what they're doing in this role. I mean, there are 100 different ways to demo, right? You could do a workshop or a POC or an art of the possible or a SIC. It's what are these acronyms? What does this even mean? I think at the end of the day, especially in the Zoom world, it's let's just be human, ground, that's it. And then let's go from there. And luckily, we both decided to do that. So it worked out.
I recently read about this idea of transformational mentorship, and it's where the mentor and the mentee both benefit from the relationship, where it's mutually beneficial. And it also has to do with the level of vulnerability that both members bring to the party. And I think that, the relationship that you guys have built very much resembles that, where it's very transformational and beneficial to the both. So Allison, what would you say that you learned through mentoring Gizelle and others? Because I know that you've mentored quite a few from PreSales Academy and other individuals looking to break into pre-sales.
I've been mentoring off and on non-officially for years and years and years. And I think that's because the most growth I've ever done in my whole career have been from great mentors who have been honest with me and been vulnerable and respect right out of the gate. And I just I want to grow. And so I remember a long time ago, I was like, I'm going to do the same. When I get to a point in my career, I don't even know if there was a certain point, just kind of jump in and start doing it. And so I do this at Salesforce and then obviously through PreSales Collective. But I'd say for me, the thing that I learn continuously is we're all in this Zoom world, right? It's nobody, we can't read each other's body language. We're not in rooms together. So you kind of have to learn how to break down those boundaries very, very quickly and establish trust very, very quickly and establish respect very, very quickly. And so meeting with Gizelle and other mentees, it's okay, for me personally, how can I be the best person of myself for them so they feel comfortable to be the best version of themselves? I just start thinking of these ways to be a better human, because at the end of the day, these are just jobs, right? It's we have this amazing field that we can do. Yes. But at the end of the day, it's we're people. And how can I show Gizelle or anyone that I'm mentoring, I believe in you. I'm going to be your biggest champion. What can I do to help you? And then it helps me be a better person all around and mentor.
That makes a ton of sense. And I'm reflecting upon, all the mentors that have poured into me. The most effective ones that are probably still in my life are the ones that facilitated that safe place for me to be myself, and where you can actually come to a call and say, yeah, I have no idea what I'm doing, or I think my boss hates me. Can I cry right now? It's really about facilitating that safe space. Now, Gizelle, on your end, you got paired with Allison and then, quickly after started your career as a new SE. How has that mentorship impacted that whole process of starting in pre-sales?
It's really been helpful to just have someone kind of outside of my team almost, and my company that kind of understands pre-sales on more of a macro level. Really just help me navigate what's going on. You know what I mean? I feel I got into it. I thought I knew what was going on. And then I was very confused and then I felt very confident kind of going into my first certification, for instance. But, I realized there was a lot of things I needed to learn and a lot of things I wasn't quite grasping as quickly as I originally thought. So having someone like Allison that I could reach out to be hey, I'm having trouble with this, and that. And how do I navigate this type of dynamic on my team or something like that? Just having somebody in my corner really has been really helpful for me to know, hey, there's someone that believes in me. Of course I have mentors as well on my own team, but it's just a little bit different when it comes from kind of an outside person. I just feel it's been super helpful just to have someone else to talk to that's outside of my group that I can kind of bounce ideas off of, that has no connection to what I'm actually selling. And it's just more about the strategy and it's more about the delivery. So it's really helping me kind of grasp things in a different way, I would say, in a different light.
I think that sounding board is so important. And a lot of times, although internal mentor programs, like you mentioned, having, a mentor or a buddy at LinkedIn, but having that kind of external sounding board, I think can be very helpful. And I know it was helpful for me as an early career SE. Thinking back, a lot of my mentors were actually in product. They were the people that were teaching me all about, the roadmap and how to really talk about technology. And those were probably some of my most impactful mentors in my career in pre-sales. And I'm curious, across your career, what are some examples of mentors that have played a role? What are some of the things that they did that were incredibly impactful for you guys?
I have two that I've just held on to and you're never going away from me. Her name is Christina and she lives in Atlanta, and she spoke at my wedding. I mean, it's a whole thing. But for her, again, going back to the type A personalities that really excel in this role or almost drawn to this role, I thought I was just hot shit, right? I'm young and I'm rising in this agency and I'm oh my gosh, I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm young. I'm 23, 24. And she was kind of the first person to like call me on my work and call me out on just different things. And I just never, ever had that ever, like I would just be like, okay, great, whatever. And she was like, I'm doing this because I care about you. And I remember 2 times. One, I gave her this deck and I thought it was going to be amazing. And she was like, not there, not even close. And I was in shock. I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, nope, we're going to try again. And it was one of those, like, I needed pitch perfect to like come back. But I was like, oh my God, what? But it kind of transformed, like, even my work now. Like this morning, I had to send a deck to a team and I'm helping them for an art of the possible. And it's like, I could still hear her voice. Like, okay, where's our North Star? Where's the strategic piece here? How is this going to impact the customers? What are they going to walk away from? And we weren't even pre-sales. This is literally just advertising. But it's like, because she took the time to invest in me and make me better, I still hear her voice. And another thing that she told me, which I've always take now in my career, is people tell me things, right? Like they just told me things my whole life, even when I was a kid. I'm very friendly. I'm very open. I'm very honest and vulnerable. And I think people just confide in me. And someone had told me something and I had told her. And, I thought she was going to say like, ooh, the goss, again, I'm young. And she said, hey, that is a very big honor when people tell you something in confidence and you need to keep it. Like, don't repeat. And I kind of took a step back again, and like no one had ever really checked me like that. And I was like, wow, you're right. And I've kind of taken that with me throughout my whole career. So I'm not going to gossip. I'm not going to share secrets, but it's almost like I can hear her voice in my head now today. So when I am talking to Gizelle or I have another mentee that I'm working with, I would love, who knows, maybe like a nugget out of 100 hours of conversations comes through. But it's like, if I can make an impact like that, in the future, that would be literally all that matters at this point.
That story is so impactful. Have you told Christina that she's the voice in your head?
Yeah, sometimes I'll talk to her. I'll text her still. And I'll be like, I need your advice on this or something. And she always used to say a slice of life. Like if you can bring through a slice of life in any presentation, people will resonate and connect. And so literally this morning, I'm working on an art of the possible. And it's this woman, and I'm thinking of my pictures to put in the deck. And I'm like, well, what's a slice of life? Like what conveys that? And so I'll just text her. I'm like, you're in my head again. She's like, great. I hope it's valuable. And she didn't even realize that she had such an impact on me. That was over a decade ago. You just don't really think about it at the time. And then you're like, wow, that kind of changed who I was as a person, which is really powerful.
I think that just speaks to the legacy of mentors who have invested in others. And I think it's true. That's not always apparent, that you don't know the investment of time and energy that you put in has that type of impact on someone else, but it truly can. And I think it speaks to the type of mentorship that Christina, facilitated for you. And I think with what you've been facilitating with Gizelle. Now, Gizelle, what about you as far as your experience with mentors in the past and impacting your career?
Actually, Allison is my first official mentor. So I had a previous mentor-like manager, basically, for my last company. And this relationship right now is making me realize, that key piece that I was missing with that person. And it was mainly like, we didn't connect on like a personal or like human level at all. But when it came to work, we worked really well together. And he taught me a lot of things and I'm grateful for that. But we just didn't see eye to eye on like basic human things. So it was just very difficult for me to like really try and invest more time to like learn more about, the industry that I was in. I was in like automotive tech, and it just kind of like discouraged me almost from that whole industry. So when I came to LinkedIn, I was like, okay, this is something completely different, clean slate in a way. And yeah, just like getting into pre-sales and meeting Allison, I was like, okay, this is what I was missing, right? It's just like, I don't only need that industry knowledge and like basic skill knowledge. I need also like a personal connection with the person in order for me to get the most out of it, and probably for them as well. So it's kind of like a bit of an opposite of what Allison's experienced, but it really just helped me know like and be more picky in a way about like, okay, who do I want to keep trying to connect with, or, what kind of mentor do I need? I need someone I'm going to connect with on a personal level. And also, of course, someone who knows what's up and is really good at their job. So, I need both. And I thought that was too much to ask, but then I found Allison. So I'm pretty grateful over here. I'm laughing. I'm pretty happy. So.
In the first 5 minutes of meeting you, it's I knew you were a go-getter. I knew you were going to kill it in pre-sale. And I just knew it. It's I can recognize traits in people. I think for you specifically, I think you have these ideas that are solid, right? But it's you're new in your career and you need someone to bounce these off of, maybe not at LinkedIn, maybe someone like me. And I'm here to tell you hell yeah, that's a great idea. And we don't have to get into specifics, but Gizelle was talking to me about, hey, we have a certification and we're talking about a grading rubric. Do you have those? I'm of course, yes, we refine them over time. We've implemented all these systems. And I'm talking for you, Gizelle, so you can, say if that was helpful. But it's almost what I've noticed in you is you have a lot of incredible ideas and things that you want to implement, but you just need to think hey, from a pre-sales lens, does this make sense? I just luckily am the person here to just be yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Go for it. That should already be implemented. A lot of things that you've even talked about. So I think, Maddie, to your original question, it just makes sense to match people. What we found, especially kind of in the same space, but also a big company. And I just had a little bit longer in the role, so I can give her that feedback. And I think that's another secret to our success, I guess I'd say.
Secret to the success. I love it. So, kind of what I'm hearing is I think it's the vulnerability, the connection aspect. And then it's also the context of similar organizations and having someone like yourself, Allison, that has a little bit more experience. And then Gizelle, having someone like you who is acting like a sponge and also throwing out ideas. And I think coming to the table with questions. So one of the things that I think that mentees fail to do sometimes is actually come to the conversation with questions and ideas. A lot of times we're coaching students either through Academy or even through the Foundations program. And it's sort of well, what do I even do with this mentor? What am I even supposed to do? How do I leverage this experience? And I think part of it is coming with that eagerness and with those questions. And so, Gizelle, I'm curious, when you came to those conversations, did you prepare questions? What did that look like?
So I had a few questions or a few kind of topics, challenges, things that I wanted to discuss. But overall, just kind of start off with a little bit of a check-in. I didn't want to have too much of a, a whole list. It's okay, we have 20 minutes or we have half an hour. I don't want to fill the whole thing with I have 20 questions for you and I need you to answer them all perfectly. You know what I mean? So I always want to approach all of our kind of conversations with maybe 2-3 questions, or 2-3 challenges or something like that, or a mixture. Just so I'm okay, this is what's top of mind for me today. That's kind of how I approach it. What am I struggling with the most? And that I feel Allison can shed some light on. And that's how I approach our conversations. Yeah.
I'm curious from y'all's perspective, do you feel it should be on the mentee to set the agenda or should it be on the mentor to set the agenda?
I think mentee personally, but I think it depends. I think it depends if it's someone that's like myself who I already have things I need to talk about. But if it's someone that's maybe a little bit less open or is struggling to kind of figure out, what a mentorship can give them, maybe the mentor needs to take the driver's seat on that.
Two things I was thinking of when you talked about this, and I was thinking back to our very first conversation. So let me tell a quick story about this. I work at Salesforce.org, and we did not have a mentorship program. But .com did through the WISE Women in Solution Engineering program. And we went back and forth on should we start our own or should we help .com and then we can have it too. And we ultimately decided it's this incredible mentorship program. Let's bring it to .org. So I was on the committee to basically bring the mentorship program to our .org SEs. And part of that was the prep. And it was going to be a 6-month program. You meet once a month. Who is in charge of asking questions is what we were trying to decide. Ultimately, we thought it would mean more to the mentee to get more out if they were able to have a say in the questions they wanted to ask. So we gave them here's questions, whatever. But I think a good mentor can do deep listening. And that's a skill of pre-sales, right? You need to do active, deep listening. And so even if they have this one question, you could probably talk for 10, 15 minutes and let the conversation organically instead of these rigid, you have 10 questions you need to answer and check back. That just didn't really work for us. I'll be honest, I know we have things to look at and guide the conversation. I've never looked at them one time because I come to it for the mentee like, hey, I'm here for you. What do you want to talk about? And then we kind of just start going and then we can dive deeper as we go. Maybe that's wrong. And maybe we're all, everyone at .org did it wrong, but we've seen a lot of success in letting it just be more natural, more organic. We have an intern on our team and her boss was like, hey, connect with Allison. Great. Okay. So, just right out of college, super sweet. And she had a list of 10 questions and she just asked me and then I would answer and then she'd go to her next question. And sometimes she'd ask it again. I'd already answered it because I was trying to get her to have a conversation, but bless her heart, she was so focused on these questions that she felt she had to answer for a good mentee mentor session. And it just didn't work. And she wasn't doing active listening, she's just focused. So I think that you can give people, here's 3 questions, like a prompt or icebreakers or whatever that is. But I think the magic happens when it's away from that personally. And maybe we'll have comments and like, that's wrong. And it's like, okay, great, let's talk about it. But for me, I think it's better to just have an organic human to human conversation.
Definitely. And I think that that's such a great point that you want to facilitate a conversation. I think it's similar to the way that we want to approach discovery. So maybe we should be telling mentees in the same way that you think about a discovery call, bring that to your first mentor call and focus on facilitating conversation versus just getting through a checklist of items. Although I do think that mentees should come prepared, with some questions, but I think that that's great. Is focus more on maybe some high level topics and then leave room for natural conversation to flow and for people to let down their guards a little bit, be a little bit more vulnerable and hopefully, create a long-term meaningful relationship. So now that we're kind of getting a little bit closer to the end, I'd love to hear you guys give our audience some advice. Gizelle, why don't you start? What advice do you have for folks that want to find a mentor, that want to leverage an existing mentor, but maybe don't know how?
I would say don't be afraid to kind of put yourself out there. If you have somebody in mind that you think you want to learn from, don't be afraid to ask them. But also if you're set up in a program or something like that, just be sure to be as authentically yourself and vulnerable as possible to allow that kind of human connection. And if you don't have it, be able to recognize it and say, this is not a good fit and go try and find someone else, because I think that's super important to be connected to that person and feel like, they can invest in you and you can invest your time in them.
I think what you're trying to say is it's like dating, right?
Yeah.
I heard some of our Salesforce executive women on a panel a couple weeks ago, and they were saying that mentorship is like dating. And so people think it's going to be amazing and wonderful. And sometimes it's not, and that's okay. So sometimes you lose the deal and sometimes you don't mesh with your mentor, and all of that is okay. You just have to remember that that's just part of life, right? You just kind of keep going. Don't give up, because mentors can be so positive on your life and your career, but you kind of have to understand, okay, this isn't such a good fit, and just keep trying. I will tell a really fun story. Is there's a woman here at Salesforce, I won't say her name, and I want to connect with her. I think, bless her heart, she's too busy. I think she's like, who is this person? And I'll Slack her. And I know she's in Dallas. And I know friends have told her, you need to meet with Allison. She just doesn't really have an option. She's just like, no. So I'm going to keep trying until she tells me to stop. Because I'm like, I promise if we could just meet. But it's not rejection. It's more of just pursuing someone that, you think would have a good fit with. And I'll just keep pursuing her. That's why I keep thinking it is kind of like dating.
It is. I'll add on to that. It's you go on a first date and you're like, oh, I'm not sure. And then, maybe you need a second date to figure it out. So you have a second meeting with your mentor, and then you're like, okay, you have to know when to cut it off and when to, okay, this might work. And we're like, oh, we're making some leeway or something. Right. So it's very, very similar to dating. It's very funny. I haven't dated in a long time because I'm married, but I do remember the feeling now.
I also think too, I think Maddie was one of your questions. How do you get a mentor? Sometimes people can feel like, oh my gosh, I don't have anything to offer. If they're very official, I would like you to be my mentor. And it's like, oh, I don't know what I can offer you. And you start having those thoughts. I've learned, and I know we've talked about it throughout this whole time together, but just an organic relationship of someone that you admire, or maybe someone who stood up on a call or acknowledged whatever they do. And you're like, hey, that resonates with me. That's something that I would want to learn more, or maybe invest my time with that person. It could be something simple as that. We have in our WISE org group at salesforce.org, if you connect with someone, we really encourage you to just shoot them a Slack and say, hey, I'd love to grab a coffee, or I'd love to just like learn more from you. And then you can kind of unofficially become mentor mentees that way. So it doesn't have to be like you need to be in a program and we meet this many times. And it's kind of just like cultivating those relationships and having those people in your corner.
I think probably the majority of the mentors that I've had are through kind of just unofficial. It unofficially kind of happened, and then they ended up investing a lot of time and energy into me. And I think those were really incredible. But then I've also had really amazing mentors through formal programs that have also been really great. I think that there's a lot of different types of mentors. And what I love about y'all's relationship is I do think it really resembles that transformational mentorship where you guys are connecting and still learning from each other months down the line. But I will say I've had some mentors that also didn't match with me personality-wise, were very different, that I did learn from. I didn't become best friends with them, but I did learn a lot from them despite not having that kind of deep connection. And so I'm curious to get your perspective on other types of mentors, and can those be effective even if you don't necessarily align a ton personality-wise?
Yeah. My boss currently, his name is John, and he's incredible. And he has become, I don't know if he knows this, maybe he will after he hears this, but I kind of look to him as a mentor, even though he's my boss and we have this very formal relationship. But if I'm experiencing something or I'm coaching a teammate, I'll come to him and just say, hey, I just want to run this by you. I'd love to get your thoughts. And I don't know if he knows how impactful that is to me. That just works naturally. I have been in an official mentorship program where we didn't super jive, and we just check in every now and then. And she had some interesting advice on children that I have 2 kids, but I still check in with her, and I say like, hey, how are you? She's doing big things and whatever, but that's okay. We don't have to be best friends with everyone. We don't have to get along with everyone. We have to be respectful, but we don't have to be like, I want to spend and invest time in you. I think it's okay.
Yeah. I think that like Allison and I work because we have very similar personalities. And I think that's what gets it. So like maybe if someone has a different personality that, than me, they might connect better with another person who's like on a similar level, right? Even like if someone's like less vulnerable, maybe they match better with a mentor that's also that way. You know what I mean? So I think it's just matching the energy, like we were talking about earlier. We match each other's energy. So maybe that's just the key to it.
My husband, he implements Salesforce and he's an introvert. So he would not do well with someone like me as his mentor. He would be like, oh, okay, this person's insane. But maybe another introvert might love someone outgoing and bring that out. It really just depends. And we're married, happily married. So maybe he would, who knows? But I really think that resonated with me when one of our Salesforce executives said, just think of it like dating and, just go from there.
Well, this has been so insightful. I feel like I've gotten a little bit more insight into y'all's relationship and just, your thoughts around what effective mentorship looks like. I think it's such an important topic, not only in pre-sales, but just for women in general, of finding mentors, being mentors. I think it's so important. And if we want this profession to look a lot more diverse in the future, it also needs to be more inclusive. And I think mentorship is, one way that we facilitate more inclusion for women and people of color coming into this profession is through mentorship. So thank you guys both so much for being here today. I have loved this conversation. I've probably laughed more on this podcast than any of the others. So thank you again for sharing your insights.
Well, that's also because Gizelle's really funny. So she makes me laugh hard all the time. She's the best. So
that's very true.
Thank you.
All right, PreSales Collective, thanks for joining for another episode of the PreSales Podcast. Every mentor relationship might look different, but I couldn't agree more with Allison and Gizelle that effective mentors foster respect, trust, and vulnerability for both parties. Mentors can provide sounding boards, career advice, and have a lasting impact on mentees. They might even be the voice in your head that reminds you to pursue excellence, like Allison shared about her mentor. If you're looking to mentor or to be mentored, I would encourage you to reach out to someone in your organization, or raise your hand for a mentorship program. Find someone at an upcoming PreSales Collective networking event, or even sign up to mentor with the PreSales Academy. Mentorship matters because it's not only a way to give back, but it's also an opportunity to learn from others. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.